remember the day the sky fell. Not literally, of course, but it might as well have. It was the day our moon met its match in a cosmic game of billiards. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning. Back when the world still made sense, back in the year 2890. My name is Dr. Sky Hawkins, and I am a lunar geologist stationed at Tranquility Base, the sprawling scientific outpost that had grown from the humble beginnings of the Apollo 11 landing site. It's funny how things change, yet stay the same. We still called it Tranquility Base, even though it was anything but tranquil these days. I remember waking up that morning, my eyes adjusting to the artificial light that mimicked Earth's day-night cycle. The gentle hum of life support systems was a constant backdrop to our lives here. I stretched, feeling the familiar tug of lunar gravity, about a sixth of Earth's. Even after years here, it still felt novel. As I made my way to the mess hall, I passed by the memorial wall. Faces of those who had come before us, pioneers who had made our life here possible, stared back. Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, Michael Collins, the first humans to reach the moon. And beside them, newer additions, Dakota Frost, the first person born on the moon, Carlos Mendoza, who discovered the lunar lava tubes that now housed most of our base. The mess hall was already bustling when I arrived. The aroma of coffee, real coffee shipped from Earth at great expense, filled the air. I grabbed a tray and joined the line, nodding to familiar faces. "Morning, Sky," a voice called out. I turned to see my colleague and friend, Dr. Jasper Redwood, waving me over. I smiled and made my way to his table once I had my breakfast, a nutrient-dense protein bar and a bowl of hydroponic fruit. "Morning, Jasper," I replied, settling into the seat across from him. "How's the new core sample analysis going?" Jasper's eyes lit up, as they always did when discussing his work. "Fascinating stuff, Sky. We're finding traces of elements we've never seen in lunar rocks before. It's like the moon is trying to tell us something new." I chuckled. "The moon's been here for billions of years, Jasper. I doubt it has many secrets left to tell." He wagged a finger at me, a playful grin on his face. "That's where you're wrong, my friend. The universe is full of mysteries, and we're just scratching the surface. Speaking of which, have you heard about the anomaly?" I paused, my coffee cup halfway to my lips. "Anomaly? What anomaly?" Jasper leaned in, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "The boys over at Deep Space Observation picked up something strange last night. A massive object moving fast. They're still crunching the numbers, but early estimates put it at about the size of Mars." I felt a chill run down my spine, despite the carefully regulated temperature of the base. That's impossible. An object that size, moving through our solar system. We would have seen it years ago." Jasper shrugged. "That's what everyone's saying. But the data doesn't lie, Sky. Something's out there, and it's heading our way." Before I could respond, a shrill alarm cut through the ambient noise of the mess hall. Red lights began flashing, and a computerized voice echoed through the speakers. "Attention all personnel. This is not a drill. Report to your emergency stations immediately." Jasper and I exchanged a look of shock before jumping to our feet. Around us, the mess hall erupted into controlled chaos as everyone rushed to follow protocol. We had drilled for emergencies countless times, but this felt different. As we made our way to the central command center, I couldn't shake the feeling that Jasper's anomaly and this alarm were connected. Little did I know how right I was, or how much our lives were about to change. The command center was a hive of activity when we arrived. Screens flickered with data streams, and the air was thick with tension. At the center of it all stood Commander Phoenix Steele, her usually calm demeanor replaced by a look of grim determination. "Attention, everyone," she called out, her voice cutting through the din. The room fell silent. "As some of you may have heard, our deep space monitors have detected an anomaly. We now have confirmation that this anomaly is, in fact, a rogue planet on a collision course with our solar system. A collective gasp went through the room. I felt Jasper tense beside me. Commander Steele continued, "The object will pass through the outer solar system in a matter of hours. Its trajectory will bring it dangerously close to Earth and the Moon." My heart sank. The implications were staggering. A rogue planet, especially one moving at high velocity, could wreak havoc on our delicate orbital dance. "What are our options?" someone called out. Commander Steele's expression tightened. "We're in constant communication with Earth. They're mobilizing every resource available, but the truth is, we have very little time. Our primary focus now is preparation and potential evacuation." The room erupted into murmurs and exclamations. Evacuation? We had never even considered such a scenario. The Moon was our home, our life's work. The thought of abandoning it was almost unthinkable. As the initial shock wore off, we fell into our roles. As a geologist, my expertise wasn't immediately relevant to the crisis at hand, but I found myself assisting in the data analysis, trying to make sense of the incoming information. Hours passed in a blur of activity. The rogue planet, which we had started calling the Intruder, was now visible to our most powerful telescopes. It was a haunting sight, a dark mass against the backdrop of space, hurtling towards us with implacable force. As the day wore on, it became clear that while Earth would be spared a direct hit, the Moon was in grave danger. The Intruder's gravitational pull was already affecting our orbit, and projections showed a high probability of impact. In the midst of the chaos, I found a moment of quiet. I stepped into one of the observation domes, staring up at the Earth hanging in the black sky. It looked so peaceful from here, so unaware of the danger lurking just beyond its sight. I thought of my family back home, my parents in their retirement community in New Singapore, my sister and her kids in the underwater city of New Venice. Did they know what was coming? Were they scared? "Beautiful, isn't it?" a voice said behind me. I turned to see Dr. River Blackwood, our resident astrophysicist, joining me at the window. I nodded. It's easy to forget sometimes, when we're caught up in our daily routines, how fragile it all is. River smiled sadly. "You know, in all our years of space exploration, all our technological advancements, we've never truly faced something like this. It's humbling." We stood in silence for a moment, contemplating the blue marble that was our ancestral home. Then River spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. "There's something they're not telling us, Sky. Something about the Intruder." I turned to her, curiosity piqued. "What do you mean?" She hesitated, then said, "Its composition... it's not natural." The spectral analysis shows traces of artificial structures on its surface. Whatever this thing is, it's not just a rogue planet. It's something more. Before I could process this startling information, another alarm blared through the base. Commander Steele's voice came over the intercom. "All personnel, brace for impact. Repeat, brace for impact." River and I locked eyes for a moment, then rushed to secure ourselves. The floor beneath us began to tremble, softly at first, then with increasing violence. Through the dome, I could see the stars wheeling crazily as the Moon's rotation was affected by the Intruder's gravity. Then, with a sound that seemed to shake the very fabric of reality, the Intruder struck. The impact was not direct, a small mercy, but a glancing blow that sent shockwaves through the lunar surface. Cracks spiderwebbed across the dome above us, and I feared for a moment that it would shatter, exposing us to the vacuum of space. But the advanced materials held, barely. For what seemed like an eternity, the Moon shuddered and heaved. Alarms blared, equipment crashed to the floor, and the lights flickered ominously. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. In the eerie silence that followed, I could hear the ragged breathing of those around me, punctuated by the occasional groan of stressed metal as the base settled. Slowly, cautiously, we began to pick ourselves up, assessing the damage. "Is everyone all right?" Commander Steele's voice came over the intercom, strained but steady. A chorus of affirmatives echoed through the base. We had survived, but at what cost? The days that followed were a blur of frantic activity. Our first priority was assessing the damage to the base and ensuring our life support systems were functioning. The impact had shifted the moon's orbit and rotation, playing havoc with our carefully calibrated systems. But we were alive, and for now, that was enough. Communication with Earth was spotty at best. The electromagnetic pulse from the impact had fried many of our long-range communication systems. What little information we could glean painted a grim picture. While Earth had been spared a direct hit, the shift in the moon's orbit had caused massive tidal disruptions. Coastal cities were flooding, weather patterns were in chaos, and the very rotation of the Earth had been affected. As a geologist, I found myself working around the clock, analysing the changes to the lunar surface. The impact had opened up vast new chasms and brought previously buried layers to the surface. In any other circumstance, it would have been the scientific opportunity of a lifetime. Now, it felt like studying the wound that might prove to be our undoing. It was during one of these analysis sessions, about a week after the impact, that Jasper approached me. He looked haggard, with dark circles under his eyes, and a grim set to his mouth. "Sky," he said, his voice low. "I need to show you something." I followed him to a secluded corner of the lab, away from prying eyes and ears. He pulled out a tablet, his fingers dancing across the screen. "Look at this," he said, showing me a series of images. They were satellite photos of the intruder taken just before impact. As I studied them, I felt my breath catch in my throat. The surface of the rogue planet was not the chaotic, crater-pocked landscape I would have expected. Instead, I saw patterns, geometric shapes, straight lines, and what looked disturbingly like the remnants of structures. "This can't be natural," I whispered. Jasper nodded grimly. "It's not. Sky, I think this planet was inhabited, maybe even engineered. The implications were staggering. An artificial planet? A world ship of some kind? But who could have built such a thing, and why was it hurtling through space on a collision course with our solar system?" As if reading my thoughts, Jasper continued, "There's more. I've been digging through some old files, stuff that was supposed to be classified. Did you know that about 50 years ago, Earth detected a similar object at the edge of our solar system?" I shook my head, too stunned to speak. "They sent a mission to investigate, a secret mission. Not even the lunar base knew about it. And then, nothing. The mission was listed as a failure, the object as having passed out of our solar system. But what if it didn't?" I finished for him. "What if this is the same object, coming back?" Jasper nodded solemnly. "Exactly. But why? And why now?" Before we could delve deeper into this mystery, an alert sounded on our comms. Commander Steele's voice came through, tense and urgent. "All senior staff, report to the command center immediately." Exchanging a worried glance, Jasper and I hurried to comply. When we arrived, we found the command center in a state of controlled chaos. At the center of it all stood Commander Steele, her face ashen. "We've just received a priority transmission from Earth," she announced as soon as everyone had gathered. "The situation down there is critical. The tidal disruptions have triggered a cascade of geological events. Earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, entire continents are being reshaped." A horrified murmur went through the assembled staff. Commander Steele held up a hand for silence. "There's more," she continued. "The impact has knocked a significant amount of lunar material into Earth's atmosphere. Combined with the volcanic ash, it's causing a rapid global cooling effect. They're calling it an impact winter." The implications were clear. Earth, our home, the cradle of our civilization, was facing an extinction-level event, and we, perched on our wounded moon, could do nothing but watch. "What about evacuation?" someone asked. "Surely they're getting people off-world." Commander Steele's expression turned, if possible, even grimmer. They're trying, but with the disruptions to the magnetic field and the debris in orbit, launches are extremely risky. They've managed to get a few ships out, headed for the Mars colonies, but it's a drop in the ocean. The room fell into a stunned silence. We had all known, intellectually, that our work on the moon was dangerous, that at any moment, a solar flare, a micrometeorite, or a system failure could end us. But this was beyond anything we had ever imagined. As the implications sank in, I found myself thinking of the intruder again. Was this random chance the cruel indifference of an uncaring universe? Or was there something more to it? I caught Jasper's eye across the room. He nodded slightly, understanding passing between us. Whatever secrets the intruder held, we needed to uncover them. Not just for the sake of scientific curiosity, but for the very survival of our species. The weeks that followed were a blur of activity. As Earth struggled to cope with the aftermath of the impact, we on the moon found ourselves in an unprecedented situation. With supplies from Earth now unreliable at best, we had to become entirely self-sufficient. Our hydroponic gardens were expanded, our recycling systems pushed to their limits. Every scrap of material was precious, every joule of energy carefully rationed. Through it all, Jasper and I continued our clandestine investigation into the intruder. We pored over the data from the impact, studied every scrap of information we could find about the mysterious mission from 50 years ago. Slowly, a picture began to emerge, though it was one that raised more questions than it answered. The intruder, we discovered, was indeed artificial, at least in part. It seemed to be a natural planetary body that had been extensively modified, hollowed out in places to create vast internal spaces. But for what purpose? And by whom? Our breakthrough came almost 2 months after the impact. I was in one of the new excavation sites, studying a particularly interesting rock formation, when my scanner picked up an anomalous reading. At first, I thought it was a malfunction. The equipment had been acting up ever since the impact, but as I recalibrated and scanned again, the reading persisted. Excited, I called Jasper over. "Look at this," I said, showing him the readout. "I've never seen anything like it." Jasper studied the screen, his brow furrowed. "This can't be right," he muttered. "These elements, they don't exist in nature, at least not in any combination we've ever seen." We exchanged a look of mingled excitement and trepidation. This was it, proof that something truly alien had touched our moon. With trembling hands, we began to excavate the site. It was slow, painstaking work. Whatever we had detected was buried deep, and we had to be careful not to damage it. Hours passed, our excitement growing with each layer of lunar regolith we removed. Finally, as the artificial lights of the base began to dim to simulate night, our tools struck something solid. Something that wasn't rock. "Sky," Jasper breathed, his voice filled with awe. "Look at this." I leaned in, brushing away the last of the dust. What I saw made my heart skip a beat. It was a panel of some kind, smooth and metallic, covered in intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change as we watched. The patterns weren't just decorative, I realized with a start. They were writing, or at least some form of information storage we had never encountered before. "We need to report this," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Jasper nodded, but there was hesitation in his eyes. "Sky, what if this is connected to the intruder? To that secret mission?" I understood his concern. If this discovery was indeed linked to the catastrophe that had befallen Earth, the implications were staggering. We weren't just looking at an alien artifact. We were looking at something that could rewrite human history and possibly determine our future. We tell Commander Steele, I decided, but no one else. Not yet. The commander's reaction to our discovery was a mix of excitement and trepidation. She ordered the site sealed off and put us in charge of a small, select team to study the artifact. The work was slow and frustrating. The material of the panel resisted all our attempts to analyze it, and the shifting patterns seemed to defy any kind of translation. Weeks passed, and Earth's situation continued to deteriorate. The impact winter was in full effect, plunging much of the planet into a deep freeze. What reports we received painted a grim picture: mass migrations, food shortages, conflicts erupting over dwindling resources. The Mars colonies were overwhelmed with refugees, and there was talk of cutting off communication to preserve their own resources. It was against this backdrop of impending doom that we finally had our breakthrough. Dr. Dakota Frost, our linguist and the first person born on the moon, noticed a pattern in the shifting symbols. "It's not a static message," she explained, her eyes bright with excitement. "It's responsive. Watch." She placed her hand near the panel, not quite touching it. The symbols swirled and rearranged themselves. As we watched in awe, they formed into shapes that were almost but not quite recognizable as letters. "It's trying to communicate," Dakota breathed, "but it doesn't know how." From that point on, progress came in leaps and bounds. We fed the panel information, mathematical constants, images of Earth and the Moon, representations of our solar system. In return, it gave us knowledge. Fragments at first, then larger chunks of information that hinted at a vast, ancient civilization that had spanned the stars. And then, one day, it gave us a name: the Architects. The Architects, we learned, were not a single species, but a collective of civilizations that had joined together eons ago. They had reshaped worlds, built megastructures that dwarfed anything humanity had ever conceived, and unlocked secrets of the universe that made our most advanced theories look like a child's crayon drawings. But the most shocking revelation was yet to come. As we delved deeper into the information provided by the panel, we uncovered the truth about the intruder and about humanity's place in the cosmos. The intruder, it turned out, was no accident. It was a seed ship, one of many sent out by the Architects to find and terraform suitable worlds. And Earth had been one of its targets. "I don't understand," I said, my head spinning as I tried to process this information. "If they wanted to terraform Earth, why wait until now? Why the collision?" It was Jasper who figured it out, his face pale as the implications sank in. "They didn't wait," he said softly. "They've been here all along. Sky, don't you see? We're the terraform." The room fell silent as the weight of his words sank in. Humanity, our entire history, our evolution, it had all been part of the Architect's plan. We were the instruments of terraforming, shaped over millions of years to transform our world into something the Architects could inhabit. "But something went wrong," Dakota added, her voice trembling. "The mission from 50 years ago, they must have discovered the truth, and they tried to stop it." The pieces fell into place. The secret mission, the intruder's return, it was all part of a cosmic plan that had been set in motion long before our ancestors had even evolved opposable thumbs. As the full scope of the situation became clear, we were faced with an impossible choice. The panel contained information that could save humanity: advanced technologies, medical knowledge, even the means to mitigate the impact winter. But using it meant playing into the Architect's plan, potentially hastening the very transformation we had unknowingly been carrying out all along. "We have to tell everyone," I said, looking around at my colleagues. "The people of Earth deserve to know the truth." Commander Steele shook her head. "And cause a panic? Destroy what little hope they have left?" "No, Dr. Hawkins. This information doesn't leave this room. Not yet." "Then what do we do?" Jasper asked, his voice hollow. The commander's eyes were hard as she surveyed us. "We do what humanity has always done. We adapt, we survive, and we find a way to fight back." In the days that followed, we worked tirelessly, extracting every bit of useful information we could from the panel while trying to avoid anything that might further the Architect's plan. It was a delicate balance, and the weight of our decisions was crushing. Earth continued its slow spiral into chaos. The impact winter showed no signs of abating, and reports of violence and desperation became more frequent. The moon, once a scientific outpost, was becoming the last bastion of organized human civilization. It was during one of our rare moments of rest that Jasper approached me, his face grave. "Sky," he said softly, "I've been thinking about the architects, about their plan." I nodded, encouraging him to continue. What if we're looking at this all wrong? What if the collision wasn't meant to destroy us, but to save us?" I stared at him, uncomprehending. "Save us?" "Jasper, look at what's happening to Earth." He held up a hand. "Hear me out. The architects have technology beyond our wildest dreams. If they wanted to destroy us, they could have done it cleanly, efficiently, but instead, they've put us in a situation where we have to leave Earth, where we have to reach for the stars." As the implications of his words sank in, I said shockingly, "You think this is all part of the plan, forcing us to evolve to become, what? Spacefaring? Like them?" Jasper nodded slowly. "It fits, doesn't it? The long game of our evolution, the push towards technological advancement, and now this crisis that forces us to look beyond our own world." I sat back, my mind reeling. If Jasper was right, then everything we thought we knew about our history, our destiny, was wrong. We weren't just pawns in the architect's game, we were their heirs. As I opened my mouth to respond, an alarm blared through the base. Commander Steele's voice came over the intercom, tight with tension. "All personnel, report to your emergency stations. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill." Jasper and I exchanged a look of panic before rushing to comply. As we ran through the corridors, I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was happening, it was just the beginning of a new chapter in humanity's story. A chapter that had been written long ago by beings beyond our comprehension. We burst into the command center to find it in chaos. Screens flickered with warning messages, and the air was thick with tension. "Report!" Commander Steele barked as we entered. One of the technicians looked up, his face pale. "Commander, we're detecting massive energy fluctuations from the intruder's impact site. It's like nothing we've ever seen before." On the main screen, a satellite image showed the crash site. What had once been a scarred lunar landscape was now alive with pulsing energy, tendrils of light spreading out across the surface like roots. "It's activating," I breathed, the realization hitting me like a physical blow. The intruder, it's not dead, it's waking up. As if in response to my words, the entire base shuddered. Alarms blared even louder, and for a heart-stopping moment I thought we were going to lose atmospheric integrity. "All systems holding," someone called out. But barely. Whatever that thing is doing, it's affecting our power grid. Commander Steele turned to me, her eyes hard. "Dr. Hawkins, Dr. Redwood, you're our experts on this thing. What are we dealing with?" Jasper and I exchanged a look. This was it, the moment of truth. Do we reveal everything we've learned, or do we hold back? In that split second, I made my decision. "Commander," I said, my voice steadier than I felt, "there's something you need to know. About the intruder, about Earth, about everything." And so, as the moon trembled beneath our feet and the intruder stirred to life, we told them. We told them about the architects, about their grand plan, about humanity's true purpose. We told them about the choice we now faced, to embrace our destiny as the architect's successors, or to fight against a fate decided for us eons ago. As I finished speaking, a heavy silence fell over the command center. The weight of this revelation seemed to press down on all of us, making the already oppressive lunar gravity feel even heavier. Commander Steele was the first to speak. "So," she said, her voice tight with controlled emotion, "we're faced with extinction on one hand, and becoming pawns in some cosmic game on the other. Not pawns, Jasper interjected. Heirs. If we're right about this, the architects aren't trying to destroy us. They're graduating us. A bitter laugh escaped the commander's lips. Some graduation. Billions dead. Our planet in ruins. But humanity surviving, I added softly. Evolving. Reaching for the stars, just as they did. Before anyone could respond, another tremor shook the base. On the main screen, the tendrils of energy from the intruder's crash site had spread further, creating a glowing network across the lunar surface. Whatever we decide, the commander said grimly, we're out of time. That thing is changing our moon, and we have no idea what it'll do to us in the process. As if on cue, a new alert sounded. One of the technicians called out, Commander, we're receiving a transmission from Earth. The screen flickered and a face appeared, gaunt, tired, but familiar to all of us. It was the Secretary-General of the United Nations, broadcasting from what looked like an underground bunker. Tranquility Base, she said, her voice crackling with static. If you're receiving this, please respond. We've detected massive energy readings from the moon. We need to know. Are you responsible? Is this a rescue attempt? Commander Steele stepped forward. Madame Secretary-General, this is Commander Phoenix Steele. The energy readings are not our doing. They're coming from the object that collided with us. And there's more you need to know. As the commander began to explain the situation, I found myself moving closer to the window. From here, I could see the glowing network spreading across the lunar surface. It was beautiful, in a terrifying sort of way, like watching the birth of a new world. And perhaps that's exactly what it was. The birth of a new world, a new humanity, one that would reach out to the stars, not as conquerors or explorers, but as inheritors, children of the architects, finally coming into our cosmic legacy. As I watched the transformation of our lunar home, a thought struck me. The intruder, the panel, the secret mission from 50 years ago, they were all parts of a test. A final exam, if you will, to see if humanity was ready to take its place among the stars. I turned back to the room where the commander was still explaining our situation to an increasingly shocked Secretary-General. Jasper caught my eye and moved to join me at the window. It's really happening, isn't it? He said softly. Everything we've worked for, everything we've believed about ourselves and our place in the universe. I nodded, watching as a particularly bright pulse of energy raced across the lunar surface. It's the end of one chapter, I replied, and the beginning of another. Whatever happens next, humanity will never be the same. As if to underscore my words, a new alert sounded. One of the technicians called out, voice filled with awe and fear. Commander! The intruder, it's moving. All eyes turned to the main screen. The massive object that had crashed into our moon was indeed stirring, energy coursing across its surface. As we watched, it began to rise, defying the moon's gravity as if it were nothing. The Secretary-General's voice came through the speakers, tight with tension. Tranquility Base, what's happening? Our instruments are going haywire. Commander Steele's reply was cut off as a blinding light filled the command center. I felt a strange sensation, as if I were being pulled in every direction at once. The last thing I saw before the light overwhelmed me was Jasper reaching out, his mouth open in a silent shout. And then, darkness. When I opened my eyes again, I was no longer in the lunar base. I stood on a vast plain under an alien sky, the horizon stretching out endlessly in every direction. And I wasn't alone. Around me stood my colleagues from Tranquility Base, along with figures I recognized from Earth. Political leaders, scientists, ordinary citizens. All of us looked around in confusion and awe. Before us stood a being of light, its form constantly shifting yet somehow maintaining a humanoid shape. When it spoke, its voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Children of Earth," it said, "you have passed the test. Welcome to your inheritance." As the being's words washed over us, I realized that this was both an end and a beginning. The end of humanity as we had known it, and the beginning of our journey as cosmic citizens. The architects had not destroyed us. They had transformed us, preparing us for a destiny among the stars. I looked at Jasper, seeing my own mix of fear and exhilaration reflected in his eyes. Whatever came next, we would face it together, not just as individuals or nations, but as a species united by a common cosmic heritage. The being of light extended what might have been a hand, a gesture of welcome and challenge. "Are you ready?" it asked, "to take your place in the universe?"